Hey guys, welcome back to r/entitledparents. In today's Reddit story, my entitled family thought it would be hilarious to leave me stranded in another state when I was 13. No phone, no money, just gone. They abandoned me, and 10 years later they found me and demanded I give them $10,000. Let's dive right into the story. And the first XXL r/entitledparents story starts like this. Growing up, I had always been the scapegoat for my family. I grew up with my two parents and my older brother Noah. I know that it's typical for the youngest sibling to be the spoiled one and the golden child, but this was not it in my case because I was the youngest and my parents were too lazy to care for me. Since they'd already spent a lot of time dealing with Noah, they always accused me of being bratty when I just tried expressing my opinion or my dislike of things they did. They never liked listening to me because I was the youngest and concluded pretty early on that I just did not get an opinion. My parents and brother would always make fun of me. As a kid, I wanted to do a lot of sports, but my family always discouraged me, saying I had no skills and that I wouldn't be able to make it on the team. When I was in high school, I finally decided that I wanted to try out for a sports team, despite what my family was saying, so I tried out for soccer. I made it in, but my family didn't congratulate me. They said that it would only be a matter of time before I was kicked out. So as you can see, my family did not treat me all that great. I still loved them at that point because I was a kid and I didn't know any better, but what happened when I was 13 changed everything. That spring, my family wanted to take a road trip to Disneyland. We are originally from Seattle, so to get to Disneyland, we had to pass through Oregon. When we reached Oregon, we stopped at a rest stop. I got out of the car to stretch and go into the bathroom. My family finished before me, and when I came out, the car was gone. I walked around for a bit thinking that I'd remembered the parking spot maybe incorrectly, but I walked through the entire lot and I did not see them at all. Thankfully, it was mid-afternoon, so it wasn't too late or anything, but I was still really confused and scared because I had no clue where they went. My parents refused to get me a cell phone, saying I was too young and didn't deserve one yet, so I had no way to contact them. I waited for hours for my family to come back, but the sun was already setting and I didn't see them at all. It was then that I realized that my family really was not coming back. I started crying because I couldn't fathom the idea of my family just leaving me. While I was crying, I realized that they really didn't care about me and that they never had. I'd always tried to justify their insults and their horrible behavior, but this had crossed a line. So I decided that I didn't even want them to come. I did not want to go back to that household. I decided to view this, as weird as it sounded, as an opportunity. I looked around for the friendliest person I could find, and luckily it was a woman named Jenny who was traveling with her family. I came up to her crying and said that my family had left me here. She was actually shocked and immediately asked if I was okay. When I explained the situation, she didn't hesitate. She pulled out her phone and called the police right away, staying with me the whole time while we waited. The officers arrived about 45 minutes later and took my statement. They had me describe my family, the car, and asked for any phone numbers I knew. I gave them my home phone number, the only one I had memorized. They tried calling multiple times over the next hour from different phones, using both the rest stop phone and their cell phones. And yeah, my dad actually answered, which gave me a brief moment of hope, but I could hear his voice from where I stood, casual and unconcerned. He told the officers they were already hours away and that I was just being dramatic as usual, and that I knew how to take care of myself. He said they would swing back when it was convenient, maybe tomorrow or the next day. When the officers pressed him about the seriousness of abandoning a minor, he got defensive and said I was probably just teaching him a lesson about being more responsible. The officers were not having it and told him this was abandonment and he needed to return immediately, but he just kept making excuses. Eventually, he stopped answering their calls altogether. Jenny stayed with me while the officers tried reaching my parents. After a couple hours with no luck, they explained they would need to take me to a temporary shelter or emergency foster placement for the night. Jenny asked if there was any way she could help, maybe let me stay with her family instead of going to a shelter. The officers explained it didn't work that way. We would have to go through CPS first, and that night I stayed in an emergency foster home. But Jenny left her contact info with the officers and CPS, saying she would be willing to be considered as a placement if they needed one. Later, after background checks and a home visit, CPS actually approved her as an emergency foster placement, and I was able to move in with her family. They also contacted Child Protective Services since this was clearly abandonment. Over the next several months, things got really complicated. CPS tried multiple times to contact my parents. Sometimes they would answer and sometimes they wouldn't. When they did answer, they would make excuses or act like the whole thing was blown out of proportion. They never once asked to talk to me directly though. They never came to get me. It became pretty clear they just didn't want to deal with the responsibility anymore. Jenny was incredible through all of this. She had to go through background checks, home visits, all sorts of legal stuff. She got a lawyer to help navigate the system. There were court dates, meeting with social workers, the whole 9 yards. My parents were served papers multiple times. They would show up to some court dates, not show up to others. When they did show up, they would claim they were just teaching me a lesson or that I was being over-dramatic, but the judge was not impressed. After about endless months of legal proceedings, court-ordered reunification services that my parents barely participated in, and multiple psychological evaluations, my parents finally signed the paperwork giving up their parental rights. The judge had determined that they had failed to complete their case plan requirements, things like parenting classes and maintaining contact, which gave them the option to surrender rights voluntarily rather than have them terminated involuntarily. They did not even fight for custody. I remember the social worker telling me they seemed almost relieved to be done with it. And that hurt worse than anything, honestly, knowing they could just let me go that easily. So Jenny officially became my legal guardian. The social worker had to coordinate a lot of this since there were questions about my legal status and where I was actually residing. That fall, with temporary guardianship papers and my school records that Jenny's lawyer helped obtain from my old school district, she got me enrolled in the local high school. We had to provide proof of residency, vaccination records, and a bunch of legal documents showing she had authority to enroll me. It took a while to process everything emotionally, but being with Jenny and her family, I started to heal. From that point on, Jenny took care of me like I was her own. Her husband Paul was just as supportive. They encouraged me to try what I wanted to and always showed up to my sports games and school events, and for the first time in my life I felt like I mattered to someone. Their children became almost like siblings to me. There were two, Natasha and Alex. They still made fun of me like siblings do, but never to the point that Noah used to. With them it was more like banter, and we were genuinely supportive of each other and cared for each other too. Even now I consider them more like family than I do with my biological family. I graduated high school and went to college, staying in Oregon. All the while my biological family didn't contact me again. I always worried that they would or that they would come after Jenny in anger, but I guess they didn't care about me enough to even check in. But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. With Jenny and her family I learned what a real loving family was supposed to be like. They celebrated my achievements, supported me through my struggles, and never made me feel like a burden. Noah had a public Instagram account for a while, and in those early years after everything happened, I used to check on him occasionally. I don't know why exactly, maybe to see if things were as bad for them as I hoped, or maybe just to remind myself that I made the right choice. Noah would post complaints about his legal troubles and court dates and ramble about his breakups and eventually his divorce, always blaming everyone else for his problems. After the divorce was finalized, he scrubbed most of his posts and finally went private, probably because his ex-wife's friends kept commenting on his posts, so he got tired of people seeing his dirty laundry. Either way, that's when I lost access. After a few years, I stopped trying to look altogether. It was not worth the mental energy. Maybe it was petty, but I couldn't help feeling a little satisfied seeing how things turned out for them before I stopped checking. As I got deeper into college, I thought about my biological family less and less. I found friends that I could call my own, my second family away from home. I graduated with a degree in business management and ended up working for a good company in Oregon. I was doing extremely well for myself, and I had my friends and adopted family to thank for it. It has been 10 years now since that day at the rest stop, and although it's been hard to get over what happened with my biological family, I'm happy where I stand. I'm happily married, by the way, with a kid on the way, and I'm helping my wife run her restaurant, which is a dream of hers that we've been saving and planning for years before finally opening about 6 months ago. It's going well and we are really proud of what we have built together, but fate just had to test me. I was at the restaurant when this happened. So usually, my wife is expediting and I'm out in the dining room waiting on the guests. But this time we switched, so I didn't know what was happening outside. My wife came into the kitchen, pulled me aside, and my wife knows about the whole scenario that went down in my youth. I mean, after being together for years, it's something you gotta tell your partner, you know. She told me that my biological family was in the waiting area, asking to be seated. She said that she hadn't addressed them yet because she knew I would be upset about it. Immediately, I started panicking. All of my old fears and anxieties came flooding back, and I couldn't even focus on expediting. Luckily, it was lunch and fairly slow, so we let our workers handle everything while my wife and I went to the back to discuss what to do. I was extremely worried about what they could have been here for, because we are in a whole different state. I knew that they were not here just passing through, I knew that they were here specifically for me. I'm not totally sure exactly how they found me after all these years, but my best guess is Jenny's Facebook. She has never been great about privacy settings and she loves posting about her family. When my wife and I opened the restaurant, she was so proud she shared it multiple times with the restaurant's name and location tagged, plus photos of me at the grand opening. Anyone could have found us through a simple Google search after that. I did not want to talk to them at all, and my wife suggested refusing to serve them, but I knew that they would cause a scene if we did that. And by the way, guys, if you would be in OP's situation and confronted with that scene, what would you have done? Would you have just kicked your family out of the restaurant, or would you have actually talked to them? I think I would have just kicked them out. There's no reason to talk to these people anymore. Either way, let me know what you would have done, and please don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously. So I took a few minutes to compose myself and decided that I would face them head on. My wife was very hesitant, but I assured her it would be okay, so with my wife supporting me, I came out to see my biological family. It felt so surreal. They all looked so much older. I hardly recognized my brother. He had gained weight and looked worn down, and when they saw me, my mom immediately tried acting sweet. She started saying all these cliché phrases like, "My darling boy, oh look how much you've grown. I've missed you so much," and other things like that. Even my dad and brother managed to muster up some fake nonsense about how much they missed me and how shocked and saddened they were that I hadn't wanted to come back home after everything got sorted out. They acted like I was the one who had made the choice to leave. They kept making small talk and tried to ask about my life with my wife and the restaurant. It was just bizarre. My wife was trying to be as polite as possible, but from her face I could tell she wanted to tell them off right then and there. Eventually though, my parents finally got to their real point. They were complimenting the restaurant when my mom said, "You know, son, since you have such a successful business going here, we were wondering if you could help us out with some money." Honestly, it was annoying, but I was almost glad it was them asking me for something like that rather than asking me to come back into their lives or trying to attack Jenny and her family or something like that. I asked them why they needed it and they mumbled something about medical bills and unexpected expenses, but honestly, I was not buying it. I'd seen Noah's social media over the years. They'd always had money problems, always living beyond their means. They were clearly in debt and probably getting desperate. They asked for around $10,000. Even if I could technically scrape that amount together by draining our savings and hurting the restaurant's cash flow, there was no way I was gonna risk everything my wife and I had built for people who abandoned me. However, I had a better idea forming in my head. I told them to come back to the restaurant tonight for dinner and I would give them a check. They were very excited and thanked me profusely, even shaking my hand and hugging me. Afterwards, they quickly left, not even stopping to order anything at the restaurant. That didn't matter to me though. I would show them exactly what they deserved later. That evening, I played the part perfectly. I pretended to be interested in their lives, asked questions about what they'd been up to, and acted like I cared about anything they were talking about. I went along with it all so I could make the final moment hit even harder. The restaurant was winding down for the evening, just one other table finishing up the dessert on the far side of the dining room. We had asked them to come at 8:30 p.m, which was near closing time, specifically so we wouldn't have a packed house for this. Towards the end of dinner I stood up and made an announcement. I said something along the lines of this: "I'm standing here in this restaurant that I built with my beautiful wife. 10 years ago I never thought I would have any of this. 10 years ago I was abandoned in a random state in the middle of nowhere by people who were supposed to be my family. I was terrified and heartbroken, but being here in Oregon, I learned what real family actually means." Not the people who belittled me and left me behind my entire life, but the people who chose to stay and chose to care. Immediately, my biological family tried making up excuses for their behavior. My mom said, "What are you talking about? We came back for you." My dad, "You were always so dramatic about everything." Noah just sat there looking uncomfortable, not saying anything. I didn't respond to their comments. I simply placed the check on the table and watched as their facial expressions went from confused to hopeful, and then my mom picked it up, looked at the amount, and her face went red. "What the hell is this?" she practically screamed. I replied calmly, $25, about the price of a one-way bus ticket from here back to Seattle. That's all you ever gave me when it mattered, and that's all I owe you now. They started yelling at me, calling me ungrateful, saying I was being cruel and petty. My dad stood up like he was gonna get in my face, but my wife stepped forward and told them very clearly that they needed to leave immediately or else I would call the police. For once they actually listened to me. They grabbed their things and stormed out, my mother crying dramatically, my father swearing under his breath. Noah looked back once before leaving, but he didn't say anything. They left and they haven't contacted me since, and I don't expect they will. And by the way, guys, I gotta say, OP is such a legend. That's the best response of all time. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same, and please don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss any of these amazing daily stories. Either way, my wife hugged me tight after they were gone. Some of our staff had heard the commotion and came to check if we were okay. I told them everything was fine and that it was just some people from my past who wouldn't be coming back. As terrible as everything was back then, everything worked out in the end. Despite all the hardship I went through, I made it out on the other side. I got a family that actually loves me, a wife who supports me completely, and a kid on the way. I'm very happy where I am now, and I don't owe my biological family a single thing. And now we got a comment from Reddit that said the following: "I cannot believe there are people in the comments supporting this. You are absolutely the a-hole here. Yes, maybe they made a mistake leaving you at a rest stop, but have you considered that you were being difficult? And Mr. Redditor, have you considered that you are being insane? Your own father told the police you were being dramatic as usual and that he was just trying to teach you a lesson about responsibility. Parenting is hard and sometimes tough love is necessary." And yeah, guys, I gotta tell you, this Redditor received a lot of hard love. Maybe a little bit too much tough love. Instead of being grateful that they swallowed their pride to come visit you and see your success, you decided to play a cruel and manipulative game. You led them on, invited them to dinner, and then publicly humiliated them in your own restaurant. Giving your own mom a check for $25 when you knew they were struggling with medical bills and debt is financial abuse, plain and simple. And yeah, guys, I would agree, that is really cruel. I would say that mother did not even deserve the $25 check she got. You claim you're happy and have healed, but happy people don't plot revenge schemes like a villain. You should have given them $10,000 to show them that you were the bigger person. Family is family, no matter what. Comment number 2, they didn't just leave you, they abandoned a 13-year-old kid in a different state with no phone. The fact that your dad told the police he would come back when it was convenient and then eventually stopped answering their calls tells you everything you need to know about them. They didn't contact you for 10 years as well. They didn't fight for custody and voluntarily surrendered their rights because it was easier than taking parenting classes. The only reason they showed up now is because Jenny posted about your successful restaurant on Facebook and they wanted a payout. You protected your wife, your child, and your business. You owe them nothing. Comment number 3, obviously your biological family are monsters. Let me guess, but family is family? Abandoning a kid at a rest stop and then coming back a decade later just to beg for $10,000 makes them major a-holes. There's no debating that. However, you kind of suck for how you handled the confrontation. You had the high ground, but you chose to drag yourself down into the mud with them. Instead of just asking them to leave or trespassing them immediately, you concocted this elaborate fake dinner plan. You sat there for an entire meal pretending to care about their lives just so you could make a dramatic speech and hand over a check for $25. It's a bit unhinged to stage a scene like that in your place of business, especially with your pregnant wife there. You should have just kicked them out and moved on with your life instead of needing this final moment to hit harder. And the next one is titled, "Dude stole my lunch for his kid and chaos ensued," posted on r/entitledparents. And by the way, guys, let me know in the comments if you still enjoy these entitled parent stories, because actually we don't read them that often because they've become kind of rare, at least the good ones. Either way, this is a first for me. I went to lunch at a local place known for their fried chicken sandwiches. I had to sit outside because the place was packed, but they have plenty of covered seating and some nice fans, so even though it was 95 degrees, it was tolerable. Anyway, I sat down and already know what I want to order, so even though the table service was slow due to them being super busy, I got my order in on the waiter's first pass. However, the table behind me was already occupied by this incredibly obnoxious couple and their teenage son. I could overhear them simultaneously arguing about what to order and also complaining about slow service. I guess they were in another waiter's section though, because they were still waiting to order after the waiter left my table. They finally got someone to their table and ordered, but with complaints. The poor waiter, less than 10 minutes later, here comes my food. "Oh, hell no," yelps the dad. "That dude got here like 10 minutes after us and he gets his food first." At first I thought he was complaining to the waiter, but no, these compliments are directed at me. "Hey, a-hole, why come?" Yes, this is apparently idiocracy, and he literally said the word "why come?" "You got your sandwich first? Hey, you hear me?" I ignore, but this guy gets up and walks up behind me and then literally steals my plate from the table before I'd even taken a bite. "You can wait, mother trucker, my kid is hungry." To this point, I haven't heard a word from this kid's mouth, so if he was hungry, he was speaking only with his baleful puppy eyes. "Eat it," says the dad. Okay, so here's the thing, this place does spicy chicken, they have like 7 levels of spicy, and George likes his chicken spicy. So of course, I ordered the next to hottest option, which is a combination of Scotch bonnet and ghost pepper sauce, not pure ghost pepper though. It is hot enough to make you cry, and as my kids say, I've burned off most of my taste buds already, and this kid, at his a-hole dad's urging, chows down before I can even stand up and protest, like before I can even stand up and say, "What the actual F, dickweed?" This kid has taken a Cookie Monster bite out of a sandwich that is slathered in a 1 million Scoville sauce, and the gagging is immediate. You know that frat party you went to your sophomore year where they were chugging jungle juice and the sound from the backyard 30 minutes in? Yeah, that. He is gagging, choking, then vomiting all over his dad. His mom is screaming and the people at the next table are jumping in. Plates are falling, a-hole dad is screaming at me, "What did you do to my son?" And I just start laughing. I'm standing there at my picnic table while the circus erupts around me. 2 waiters come running over. The dad is screaming by now, the kid is still wheezing and choking, mom is crying, one person at the next table over is literally crying with laughter, another looms like she's about to vomit. Laughing guy speaks up and steps between the dad and me, who looks like a real-life human anger from inside out. We then explain what happened to the manager, who has since showed up, as evidenced by the fact their order is just showing up. Anyway, they pack up their meals to go tell them they are not welcome back at this establishment, start cleaning up, and the manager takes me inside, gives me a replacement meal, a $50 gift card, and asks me to please not write a negative review or press charges. So that happened. 2025, y'all. It is wild here. And by the way, guys, let me know in the comments, what is your favorite place for chicken sandwiches? And now let's continue with a funny petty revenge story that you don't want to miss. This one is titled, "This girl in the theater had her feet up on the back of my friend's chair." So I was out to a movie with my friends last night, we come and sit down, and I realized pretty soon that this girl in the row behind us has her feet up on my friend David's seat. She is there with one of her friends, so David turns around and he says something like, "Do you think you could put your feet down?" And I think they say something in response, but I didn't hear it. The feet didn't go down though. A few minutes later, David says, "Hey, will you get your feet off my chair? It's extremely rude." And they still don't budge. So I tell David that he should go find an employee, get them to talk to this girl. He does exactly that, and after a couple more minutes, an employee comes down and talks to this girl. She is obviously pretty peeved, but begrudgingly agrees to put her feet down. After the employee leaves, she puts her feet right back up. At this point, I'm pissed off. Why is it so important to you that you have your feet up on someone's chair? You're just being a brat. So I get out of my seat, walk up 2 rows, sit down in the seat directly behind this girl, and then stick my foot on the back of her chair and push it forward. They both turn around and try to say something to me, but I cannot really hear them since the movie had started by this point, so I just say, "Just watch the movie." I kept my feet up there the entire movie. It felt like I'd done wall sits for 2 hours, but I'm glad I did it. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you again tomorrow.